Great to have you with us. In our first story, the Power Distribution Services (PDS) says it will go through due process by complying with the terms of the transaction agreements executed between it, the Electricity Company of Ghana (ECG), and the Government of Ghana, and insists it has acted in good faith at all times. A statement signed by Reverend William Hutton-Mensah, Chief Executive Officer, reads, and that's what's on your screen right now. PDS has taken note of the statement issued by government through the Ministry of Information (MOI) on behalf of the Ministry of Energy Ministry of Finance, acting for and on behalf of the Government of Ghana (GOG) and the Electricity Company of Ghana. PDS wishes to state for the record that it has always acted and will continue to act in good faith at all times. PDS will go through due process by complying with terms of the transaction agreements executed between it and the ECG on one hand and GOG through MOF on the other hand. PDS also wishes to assure the Ghanaian public that it will not rush to put out any information until it has been sufficiently substantiated in the interest of safeguarding the transaction and the image of Ghana. It's signed by the Chief Executive Officer for PDS. Now, the statement is a response to government's announcement that it had suspended the concession agreement. Government says the decision was taken after it detected fundamental and material breaches of PDS's obligation in the provision of payment services, that is demand guarantees payment securities, demand guarantees for the transaction, which have been discovered upon further due diligence. Energy Minister John Peter Amewu says the payment of securities tendered was inconclusive and not in accordance with the required specifications. He spoke to Kojo Yankson on the AM show.
Fraud in the execution of the payment security simply means that the payment security tendered was not conclusive and was not in accordance with the requirements and the specification that was required, and that it was not authenticated by the sources that were supposed to execute that agreement. The payment security that they provided and that alleged coming from the source execute the agreement, now denying that they have never executed such payment security.
Oh, all right. So that is fraud. So basically, you suspect that PDS lied to the Government of Ghana to get this contract?
Well, that evidence will come up. Yeah, I've made mention earlier on that the timing of the agreement was very key, and the date of execution of the agreement was one of the conditions for exercising the agreement. And so, to make sure that the agreement takes effect, because MIDA, as the investing body or the investor, has a responsibility to make sure the agreement is executed. So, whatever it takes them to make sure the agreement takes effect from the date that was stipulated. I think that was exactly what we did.
So what you're saying is that in order to stick to the timelines, Government of Ghana agreed that we would sign a contract with a concessionaire that was yet to prove its securities to us. We agreed to do that just to meet a deadline?
No, don't forget, please. I stated earlier on that there were due diligence processes ongoing as the agreement is being executed. Even as we speak now, because there are still processes to be completed, ECG on its own as the owner of assets has a responsibility to continue doing those processes. So it is not a result of the timeline talk that doesn't trigger it. It is a process of ongoing engagement, which of course mandates the owner of the asset to do anything that claims its right to authenticate the validity of what document was submitted. So the fact that it has been established through the process, and that though the agreement was executed, the process of due diligence had not come to an end. And so that allows for further findings and details of the payment security to be examined. So it's an ongoing process.
Yes.
The agreement, again, as you are aware, has not been terminated.
Yes.
It's been suspended. And so the suspension of this agreement gives the path for all the stakeholders involved to engage in further discussion. Okay, so we have suspended it because government also considered the assets of Ghanaians very important, And in order not to put this asset in the hands of people who claim they have.
Meanwhile, an economist with the Institute of Fiscal Studies, Dr. Edo Susar-Kodia, says government must properly investigate the abnormalities which led to the suspension of the contract with PDS.
Because if you look at the cost that government would have incurred if he had continued, then that would have been a bigger problem than this. Again, it raises questions about due diligence. Yesterday, the Minister of Information talked about due diligence, that they suspend this PDS agreement because they have exercised due diligence. But the question is, why didn't you exercise due diligence at the time of the signing of the contract? So I think going forward, and these are some of the things that we have been seeing in the energy sector. It looks like the energy sector, there's something going on that we all don't know, because already there is an arrears of 14 billion Ghana cedis which can finance free SHS for the next 10 years. And so we should be very diligent in signing contracts. Yesterday, or Monday, the Minister of Finance said we had already gone into agreement to sign certain contracts for the provision of electricity that we do not need. Just 2 days after that, we have PDS contracts being suspended because of some detected anomalies. Why, as a country, would we just get up and go and sign contracts without exercising due diligence, without opening our eyes, without knowing where it will lead us, before we come and sit down and go back to the drawing table, revise the notes and say, oh, wait a minute, it looks like we signed a wrong contract. And so the energy sector, the contracts going on, somebody somewhere is taking his percentage and enriching himself at the expense of the whole nation. And we cannot continue to do that. You mentioned that we must get to the bottom of the matter. Whatever we have to do, I think that somebody must be arrested. I think that
who is that person?
Whoever we catch.
That someone or some persons within the energy ministry misled the country with this PDS contract.
You can say that, because what is anomaly? Anomaly is you tell me A and I go to find out it's B. That's anomaly. So somebody wasn't truthful with us. So let the investigations go on. When we come to the conclusion of the matter, let's prosecute.
Away from that story, the Supreme Court has ruled that 3 mining leases granted Exton Cubic, a company associated with brother of former President John Mahama, Ibrahim Mahama, are invalid, void, and of no effect. The court also held that the lease granted Exton Cubic did not comply with mandatory statutory provisions of the Minerals and Mining Act and Article 268 of the Constitution. An Accra High Court, presided over by Justice Aka Boafo, in May 2018 ruled that then Lands and Natural Resources Minister John Peter Amewu had no power to revoke the mining licenses granted to Exton Cubic to prospect for bauxite. The court quashed the minister's revocation of the license. Justice Boafo also ruled the company breached several processes in its acquisition of a mining license, a situation that makes it impossible for Exton Cubic to be deemed to have a mining right as required by law. Deputy Attorney General Godfred Yeboah-Dame, who believed the ruling was partly in the interest in government, was quick to contend that the judge went beyond his original jurisdiction and erred in quashing the letter written by the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources after finding statutory and constitutional violations by Exton Cubic. He therefore issued a writ at the Supreme Court asking that it intervenes and quash the ruling by Justice Aka Boafo. The 5-member panel, presided over by Justice Julius Ansah, in its unanimous decision read by Justice Malfoy Sao, stated that when the High Court held that the 3 mining leases were obtained illegally, the logical thing to do was to refuse the application for certiorari. The court therefore stated that the High Court committed an error of law when it quashed the minister's letter which revoked the mining lease. The Supreme Court declared the 3 mining leases void and of no effect. Still live on Joy News today. Now, in our Media Freedom campaign today, we highlight the track record of the various governments under the Fourth Republic when it comes to promotion and defense of the media.
If any journalist continues, these people you are talking about, very soon I'll ask the Commissioner for National Affairs to read a gist of what, and the AG of what they have done. And you agree with me, some of them were given several warnings.
Prior to the Fourth Republic, there was a culture of silence. According to the National Reconciliation Commission, attacks on the media constituted the highest forms of violations in the country.
Hello? You better shut up when I'm talking, okay?
President Rawlings then liberalized the media by repealing previous laws the PNDC signed.
This country is not going back. She's moving only forward.
Many private newspapers that had been prohibited by former President Rawlings' own 1989 newspaper licensing law suddenly reappeared. Despite the letter of the law, the Rawlings government continued to pile pressure on the state press and intimidate the private press. Cabral Blay Amihie, then head of the West African Journalists Association and editor of the independent newspaper, was arrested by armed soldiers. The Ghanaian Chronicle and the Free Press were similarly attacked in 1994 and 1996.
John Agyekum Kufuor.
After the election in 2000 of John Agyekum Kufuor, the tensions between the private media and government decreased. Kufuor was a supporter of free press and repealed the criminal libel law. The press freedom environment started deteriorating after the MPP won its second term in 2004 with the attacks on the then editor of the Enquirer, Raymond Archer, over the Gizer Yazi and Harune Seku kickback reports being a high point. Indeed, in 2015, the Media Foundation for West Africa cited 24 media violations in 2008 as the worst in the last decade, predominated by physical attacks.
The year 2011 was an action year.
Under President Mills, media freedoms were safeguarded. According to the World Press Freedom Ranking, the late president's average 28 ranking was better than that of his predecessor, whose average rank was 47. That notwithstanding, 2009 recorded the second highest number of physical attacks on journalists between 2004 and 2015. Perhaps the biggest blot on the record of the Mills administration was a boycott of the Multimedia Group Limited in March 2012.
The Media Development Fund is being restructured by the Ministry of Communications to allow for continuous financing of vital and critical activities and programs needed to respond to the current trends in journalism.
When then Vice President John Mahama took over from his mentor, there was a lot of hope for media practice in the country, largely because he had often touted his membership of the Inky fraternity. Indeed, it was during his tenure in 2014 that Ghana had its best World Press Freedom Ranking published by Reporters Without Borders. On the other hand, assault on a journalist by presidential staffer Stan Dogbe led to Ghana's drop in the World Press Freedom Ranking by the US-based Freedom House in 2015. 2016 saw some legal developments favorable to press freedom. In June, the government withdrew the Interception of Postal Packets and Telecommunications Messages Bill, known as the Spy Bill, from parliamentary consideration.
It is my duty and my privilege to declare Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo as the President-elect of the Republic of Ghana.
President Akufo-Addo's ascension to the highest office of the land was good news for media freedom, since he was the Attorney General that repealed the criminal and seditious libel laws, a feat he has always been proud of.
As Attorney General, under the government of the great Ghanaian statesman, His Excellency John Agyekum Kufuor, the second President of the Fourth Republic, I led the process in Parliament for the repeal of the criminal libel law. The repeal, when it occurred on 27 July 2001, was a very happy day for me, representing one of the high points of my public career.
Indeed, after so many years, the Right to Information Bill has been passed into law. Despite these laurels, there have been deepening worries about attacks on the media. Ghana has recorded at least 41 violations of media rights between February 2017 and March 2019. From the murder of Ahmed Swale through the assault of Latif Idris and 20 others to the attack on media houses, and for the first time in the Fourth Republic, eventual shutdown of two known opposition media groups, Radio Gold and Radio XYZ. That's not all. There have also been detentions, threats, torture, and the seizure of equipment, all under this government.
And the hashtag remains Defend Media Freedom. Now, do you know that there's a closed season in Ghana for hunting wild animals? Well, the Wildlife Division of the Forestry Commission has announced the 2019 closed season for hunting and capturing of wild animals will commence from August 1 and end on December 1. The 4-month ban is in line with the Wildlife Convention regulations, and any persons who contravene any provision of this regulation will be guilty of an offence and liable on summary conviction to a fine. There's more in the following report.
Hunting closed season is an effort to halt the fast declining population of wildlife species, which according to the Forestry Commission is in decline. Deputy Chief Executive of the Commission, John Alote, has advised hunters to respect and observe the ban.
The closed season is a period that is agreed by the Wildlife Division and other communities to be able to make sure that we allow the animals to breed. So that for the next 4 months, starting from tomorrow, we'll be able to allow the animals to breed so that they'll be able to produce more of the animals and be able to maintain their numbers.
He, however, admits there's a major challenge in identifying the number of persons with hunting licenses, but says law enforcement will be enhanced to deal with recalcitrant hunters.
Chiefs and communities, but then there were some recalcitrant ones, and then we have to, apply minimum, force to be able to arrest some of them. But what we continuously try to do is to carry out the education.
While the closed season is being observed, hunters will only be allowed to hunt grass cutters legally.
Away from that is a special kind of communication center where each member of the community brings their own mobile phone. Under a thatched roof, sit all, expect or call, or wanting to make one. Now, it's the only point any individual can get access to a mobile phone network. For the internet connection, the community has no hope of being connected at any time soon. Love FM's Daniel Jima traveled to Safun Kwanta in the Western North region from where he shares experiences of residents.
A smartphone swings on a string in a structure roofed with thatch. In the roof is another locked in here. No one sits under this shelter. In the era of mobile phone theft, passers-by here are not interested. You can leave the phone there for 2 hours. Sometimes we leave them there and go to the farm. When you miss a call, you return them. No one steals phones here. The shelter was raised by the community for easy location of network spots and provide comfort for people. Even though the phones are protected from excessive sunshine, streaming seeping into the phone in the event of rain is not guaranteed. This is the risk townsfolk go through before they are able to receive a phone call. Passers-by who hear any phone ring owes the owner a duty to pass on to the owner. Alice Ajay is the owner of this phone hanging loosely here. Returning a call she missed took her more than 5 attempts before finally being connected. The joy a simple phone call brings to her face.
And sometimes you don't even get the network easy. So you try to call the person unless you get a person. And sometimes when you come here, there is many people here. So if the call is important, you can't stand here to do it. So you have to leave for a few minutes. When they left, then you come and do your. Maybe there is a news out, and if you want to hear it, you will not get it because of the bad network here. So you leave it when you leave from here to the city. When you open it for that one, maybe if that message is important, you will not get it. So because of the network, there are some news that you will not get for calling. Someone used to WhatsApp you.
Her joy is, however, incomplete because the internet she enjoys so much in the city is not available in the community.
When I come here and I don't have the network, I try to find it difficult because I have some friends. When maybe some good news will come, if they want to inform you, they will not get it. When they call, they will not come, so they will try to use to WhatsApp you. So instead of you to open your WhatsApp, because of the network, you can't open it to get that news early. So later on, maybe when you leave here to the next town, when you open it, the news is there. And if that news is important, you will not get it.
Besides network issues, the community faces electricity challenges. Another disincentive for using a phone here. Gertrude Sawe says people travel a kilometer to the nearest village to charge their phones at a fee.
I leave it with the one who charges them at a fee on market days. It costs 1 cedi per charge.
Residents of communities in and around Safon Kwanta live with little or no internet service. Even though there is hope of having reliable phone network, the possibility seems far away from them. From Safon Kwanta in the Western North region, Nana Ojima reporting.
Quite the phone call you'd have to make there. Now, the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly Sanitation Enforcement Team has closed down on a popular restaurant in the city over unhygienic conditions. The team discovered piles of waste and a dirty cooking environment when they visited the Golden Ashanti Home Touch. Managers of the facility have been invited for questioning. Love FM's Erastus Asari Donko has more.
This week, we stormed the premises of Golden Home Touch Hotel at Asafo. Contrary to the external appearance, there were serious environmental sanitation breaches and issues of hygiene. The kitchen looked dirty and unkempt. Cobwebs, pungent-smelling abandoned fridges that still hold decayed food remnants were seen. Waste in sacks. We found waste kept in sacks in front of the kitchen. This window to the kitchen blows what seems like filthy air from a stockpile of waste gathered outside. Behind the hotel is this heap of refuse that has not been collected for days. This machine is supposed to be used for pounding the next fufu to be served at the restaurant. These toilets for laborers has not been cleaned and flushed for days, with green algae coloring the floor. The manager and the restaurant caretaker were invited for questioning, and an order issued to close the place temporarily. Your place is next. Keep Kumasi clean.
Now, the campaign to keep Ghana clean is gaining a lot of attention. Some citizens are taking up the responsibility to prevent others from littering. It was dramatic Tuesday morning at Ashaiman as some residents made a man pick refuse from the streets after they allegedly caught him littering the street. The culprit, however, denied any wrongdoing. He spoke to us.
That is the young man picking up refuse from the street when he was caught littering at Ashaiman on Tuesday morning. As part of his punishment, he was made to pick all refuse from the streets. A resident who witnessed the act said the punishment was meant to serve as a deterrent to others to desist from littering. The culprit, however, denied any wrongdoing. He says he was rather helping to clear refuse from people's homes, but his actions were misunderstood by the residents.
It lies on all of us. Let's all contribute to keep our nation clean. Now, former President John Agyekum Kufuor is advocating incentives for assembly members across the country. According to the former president, assemblymen are burdened with various responsibilities that cannot be overlooked. He made these remarks when some assembly members called on him to share in his experience on local governance in Ghana at his residence. Ifa Evans-Chinui reports.
Taking turns to share their experiences as assembly members with the former president, most of them lamented the fact that they do not receive any form of stipend and also do not have access to the common funds as assembly members. They say this is preventing them from carrying out their duties effectively. Former President Kufuor called on the members to exercise restraint since Ghana's economy has not progressed much.
Ideally, the allocations should be done through the executive under your supervision. The money should not come to you as assemblymen. Just like you are right in pointing out, money shouldn't go to the MP. Exactly. The MP is not an engineer. He's not an education expert or a medical expert. So why should they take this fund and say they are controlling it? Your work is very serious and heavy. The responsibility is heavy. And there should be, even if it's not a salary, such it should be a stipend. Without the sound economy, I tell you, talk, nobody would believe you. They think, oh, it's all hypocrisy and lies and that sort of thing.
The former president also asked them to cherish accountability and transparency and ensure that citizens have a chance to participate in governance. He also touched on the fact that to deal with poor sanitation in the country, certain bad habits must change.
To break this thing, we need some radical methods. In the short term, yes, a bit of punishment here and there, but then the responsibility should be on the assembly to also bite the bullet. Go, take it, and then get a plan. We don't have to wait always for the central government to think everything out for us. The assembly cry is powerful, big, think big. We must go back to the sewage system, big drains underground, covered like happens. We'll go to places where population is 10 million, 20 million. In the so-called developed world, you don't see gutters, you don't see all these things. So how come we cannot even begin to try to do something?
Alfred Ajay is presiding member of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly. He says members are ready to challenge themselves and contribute to the growth of the nation.
Accountability and transparency, not just but accountability and transparency. Most of us are aware of this, but with his endowed knowledge, as I said, he has really equipped us a lot, and we are going back to really practicalize all that he shared with us. And not only AMA, but we are also going to spread this message to other municipalities, those outgone municipalities out of AMA, and we are going to ensure that Ghana become a better place to be so far this realization is concerned.
The team presented a citation to the former president, cataloging his continuous contribution to the nation.
Live on Joy News today with me, Daniel Dazi. Darryl Kwao is standing by to bring his business, and when he comes, GIPC is calling for restraint following rifts between Ghanaian and foreign retailers. Stay with us.